Okay, now I want to use a couple of minutes to introduce another very strategic partnership that we have just started, and I'm calling on stage Andrew Lopianowski from Onyx Consulting, that will also give a speech right after me. And, well, Onyx is a consultancy firm from the UK, from London. And with them, we are starting to put another piece in the puzzle in the job that we do to support startups in doing a best job, in better understanding the steps that they have to take to be more efficient, to be faster in scaling, and to reach their targets. And also for investors that need sometimes help in understanding what their portfolio companies are doing, if they are on track in reaching the goals that they have set together. And Onyx will help us doing that in a much more efficient and professional way. So thank you, Andrew, and I'll leave the stage to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stefano. So as mentioned, my name's Andrew Lopianowski. I'm from Onyx Consulting. So a little bit about us. We're a management consultancy based in, our headquarters are in London, in the UK. And our specialty is in helping investors and young businesses in identifying, generating, and managing high growth. And the way that we do this is by essentially identifying what are the potential hurdles to success that an organization can run into. And these are measured against a variety of different growth drivers within a company. And then designing and implementing essentially a strategy and a plan for overcoming those hurdles and enabling the business to evolve. So we're particularly excited about this partnership because this is the first time that we're able to actually bring advice and support to businesses that, or the types of advice and support that's typically reserved for more established companies, and bring it to more early stage and mid-stage businesses, such as in the startup tech industry. But before I go into kind of how we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of growth in the tech sector. So I'm going to share with you some information and give you a bit of an understanding of what are the ways that Onyx views the growth cycle that typical businesses go through. So here we have some stats, some data for you. This is drawn from a number of recent research that has been done on the startup industry, on the tech sector, and various other sources. I think there's a few very prominent things that emerge here. First of all, which is perhaps a bit of a, maybe not be such a surprise to some of you, maybe a surprise to others, is that while in most industries having a growth greater than 20% would be, an investor's dream, in this type of environment in the tech sector, what the research has found is that businesses that show less than 20% growth have a 92% chance of actually going out of business within the next 3 years. So that's quite a significant difference compared to most other industries. Some of the other figures that you can see up there include the fact that when it comes to top-line growth, this has a 2-time greater impact on market cap than margin improvement does. What some of the research also highlighted in the tech sector is that while these kinds of changes and this kind of growth rate is important, it's also very difficult. In terms of the sector, most of the companies, about 3%, or sorry, very few companies, about 3% of startups only will go up to reaching a 1 billion in terms of their size, and only about 0.6% are actually going to reach 4 billion. So there's a very high rate in terms of 85% of growth startups are actually unable to maintain a steady growth rate. And the interesting thing is that once a company loses this high growth rate, only about 25% or less are able to actually regain it. And even those that do end up having half the market cap of companies that actually manage to sustain their growth over time. For me personally, and this actually comes from those of you who are familiar with it, the Startup Genome Project, one of the most interesting stats that came out of their research is that in terms of startup companies, about 90% of all startup companies will fail in the early stages. which is quite a high number. And of those, 70% are going to fail because of management issues and the way the business is being run, rather than actually the product, the idea, or competition in the market. So I know this is quite a bit of kind of doom and gloom, but the point is that actually there's something that can be done about this. So let me share with you how Onyx actually views the growth cycle. Now, I'm not sure how well this can be seen up there. Some of it's a bit small, but essentially we view stages of growth for organizations. So based on our work, what we found is that there's about typically 4 stages of growth that organizations go through. And there's 2 kind of critical elements to these growth stages, is that for the journey to be successful, there are 2 things an organization must be doing. First of all, they need to be able to continuously grow the physical structure and management of their business. So that's kind of represented here by the top half of the chart. And the second stage is that they need to keep evolving and developing their business model so that the idea and the product is being constantly developed, as well as the market to which it is being sold. So let me walk you through the 4 stages that you can see there. First of all, there's invention, which is fairly self-evident. So invention is really where you, as founders, begin to nurture and develop the idea around a business model. And then you cycle this by testing and pivoting the business model until you're able to establish it effectively in a core market. When a business moves out of this stage, this is where the business needs to start thinking not just about being able to establish a more organized structure, but they need to actually move into segment customization in order to further develop that core market. So this is where the business starts to take more firm shape. The third stage then is expansion, which is self-explanatory again. This is where you start looking actually growing into new geographies and or developing complementary or new product lines. And ultimately, the final stage is where businesses go into this collaboration mode, where ultimately they're creating an ecosystem of the complementary products and services that are being delivered across a variety of markets. Now, I was thinking a little bit about what would be a good example here, and I wanted to try and come up with something creative and innovative, but actually something that can speak to all of us would be obviously the traditional example of Google, because they have actually gone through all 4 stages. So the way that their journey would have looked would be in stage 1, the founders in a garage in Menlo Park kind of testing and developing their search algorithm. And then moving into stage 2, they established an office, and then they managed to develop a market-leading search engine. Moving into stage 3 is when they actually started to innovate more. They started to allow their engineers, gave them percentage of their work time to come up with creative ideas, and this developed things that we're now very familiar with, like Gmail and AdWords. And finally, moving into the collaboration stage is where Google ultimately created kind of complementary service lines and created what we'd call a holistic ecosystem of complementary services that range from everything from business applications, autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, targeted marketing, so on and so forth. The list goes on. So that's a brief overview of the model. And I think the important thing to view then is, in terms of this equation, as we call it, again, a bit of a heavy consulting model, but essentially there are 4 elements that we see, 4 pillars to a business that are critical for keeping that business successful and moving forward. And we heard earlier this morning Tom talking about the importance of people, the importance of having people in the right roles, having the right structure, those kinds of things. So in this model, just very briefly, I'd say that moving from left to right, looking at what is the purpose, what is the objective, and what is the clarity of understanding a business has around what it's trying to achieve needs to be established. The next stage is then about actually setting up the operations, turning that business model into an operational model. So all of that is designing the business, and there's many things that play into this. And then ultimately you move into implementation, which is often where organizations, even in larger scales, fall a little bit short, which is actually going, how do we make that real? It's all well and good to blueprint and design this, but how do we actually make the business operate successfully? So implementation is about actually executing that design through a program of change, helping people in the business to evolve, and to make sure that you've got the right people in the right places doing the right things and incentivized and motivated to perform. So I won't speak any more on that. I think that's kind of the heavy part done. What I wanted to highlight here is that this is really the crux of why we're so excited that UStart and Onyx are able to come together, because this is really the first time that we're able to bring investors and young companies a kind of a unique offering that is going to help their businesses grow. And we call this the Onyx Boost program. Essentially what this is it's a means to helping a business to evaluate where it is and where it wants to go. So one of the key indicators to business success, especially in young businesses as they're going through the stages, is how well they recognize and are ready for the challenges and the hurdles ahead. That's going to a large extent, predict the success that they're going to have going forward. And our approach is essentially to assess where they are currently and to identify the opportunities and hurdles and plan for them and to recommend how to best overcome those. Very briefly here, the program essentially covers these 5 steps that you see overhead. Essentially, we begin with an introductory look at what are the drivers of the tech sector, business growth, and the growth of businesses within that sector. Then we look very specifically at an individual company. We look at assessing them, both from the perspective of their strategy, their business model, but also across these other factors that I highlighted in the equation before. And this is done quite quickly and without having a detrimental impact on the operations of the business. So we're talking here a few days. That allows us to assess where the business is, not only in terms of its growth stage, but where it's moving next. And this is critical for a business that is seeking for investment, because when they get investment, typically you're looking to be able to move to the next stage. So you're looking to move and evolve. So having a plan for that is critical. So we return that back to the business and work with them to go, here's what we've identified, here are our recommendations, and here's how best you can move the business forward to help take advantage of that investment and move to the next phase of growth. And of course, UStart and Onyx will both also be providing ongoing support through the measurement of ongoing KPIs, things that the business has identified as critical, and monitoring these and providing support and feedback along the way. So that's just a light touch on that. I think the important thing is why. Why is this valuable? Why is this useful? Essentially, it's valuable because until now, this kind of offering has been something that's usually reserved for more established businesses, because this is quite a kind of a strategic form of a business assessment. And we want to make it something that's accessible to help younger organizations to continue on their growth journey. So in terms of the value to investors, typically our expertise with investors is really in helping them and supporting them through their investment life cycles. However, through this program, this Boost program, in effect, it is a post-investment assessment that allows investors to be able to identify where the potential hurdles and the opportunities for growth and recognize these and address them quickly, whereas they would typically only be identified months later into implementation. So it's about being much more proactive. And this really helps to reduce the downside of kind of high risk but also high reward investments. For small businesses, for entrepreneurial firms, this is essentially helping provide valuable insights that typically would not be available at this stage to help identify their current state and what changes they're going to need to make going forward. So that is kind of essentially the rationale and the value of the partnership that Onyx and UStart is seeking to provide to the people the investors and to the businesses that we represent. So I'd just like to close by actually introducing my team who's here. I'm not going to say anything about that, but They are, I'd like to introduce, so Chris Haley and Iswar Navaratnam are two of my directors I brought with me from London. So they're here with me through the course of the conference, but also my European region head, Alex Aristos, who played a pivotal role in actually establishing this partnership and in developing this Boost program, is here as well. So we're very keen to talk to you about it in more detail. If you're interested, please come and find us. If you are interested more in just the challenges and how businesses grow and how the growth model evolves, you'll be able to find that on our website. There's a paper that describes all of that in more detail. So I just wish you all the best at the rest of the conference and hope to be speaking to you at some point later today or tomorrow. Thank you.